Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. सौत्ये वृतः कुमतिन् आत्मद ईश्वरो मे यत्पादपद्ममभवाय भजन्ति भव्याः मां शान्तवाहमरयो रतिनो भुविष्टं न प्राहरन् यदनुभावनिरस्तचित्ताः.
It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses, and it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation.
नर्माणि उदररुचिरस्मितशोभितानि हे पार्थ हे अर्जुन सखे कुरुनन्दनेति सञ्जल्पितानि नरदेव हृदि स्पृशानि स्मत्तुर्लुटन्ति हृदयं मम माधवस्य.
O King, his jokings and frank talks were pleasing and beautifully decorated with smiles. His addresses unto me as, O son of Pritha, O friend, O son of the Kuru dynasty, and all such heartiness are now remembered by me, and thus I am overwhelmed.
सय्यासनाटन विकत्तन भोजनादिषु ऐक्याद्वयस्य ऋतवानिति विप्रलब्धः सख्युः सखेव पितृवत्तनयस्य सर्वं सेहे महान् महितया कुमतेरगं मे.
Generally, both of us used to live together and sleep, sit and loiter together. And at the time of advertising oneself for acts of chivalry, sometimes, if there were any irregularity, I used to reproach him by saying, my friend, you are very truthful. Even in those hours when his value was minimized, he, being the Supreme Soul, used to tolerate all those utterings of mine, excusing me exactly as a true friend excuses his true friend, or a father excuses his son.
सोऽहं नृपेन्द्ररहितः पुरुषोत्तमेन सख्या प्रियेण सुहृदा हृदयेन शून्यः अध्वनिवृक्रमपरिग्रहम् अङ्गरक्षन् गोपैः असद्भिः अबलेन इव विनिर्जितोऽस्मि.
O Emperor, now I am separated from my friend and dearmost well-wisher, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore my heart appears to be void of everything. In his absence, I have been defeated by a number of infidel cowherd men while I was guarding the bodies of all the wives of Krishna.
तद्वै धनुस्त इषवः सरतो हयास्ते सोऽहं रदी नृपतयो यत आनमन्ते सर्वं क्षणेन तद् अभूद् असद् ईशरिक्तं भस्मन् हुतं कुहकराद्धमिवोक्तमूष्यम्.
I have the very same Gandiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot drawn by the same horses, and I use them as the same Arjun to whom all the kings offered their due respects. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them, at a moment's notice, have become null and void. It is exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes, accumulating money with a magic wand, or sowing seeds on barren land.
राजन् त्वयानुपृष्टानां सुहृदां नः सुहृत्पुरे विप्रशापि विमूढानां निघ्नतां मुष्टिभिः मितः वारुणीं मदिरां पीत्वा मदोन्मदितचेतसाम् अजानतां इव अन्योन्यं चतुः पञ्च अवशेषिताः.
I can't see the screen. O King, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwarka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result, they all became intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice and fought among themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone.
प्रायेण एतद् भगवतः ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टितं मितो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भावयन्ति च यन्मितः.
Factually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, the personality of Godhead. Sometimes people kill one another, and at other times they protect one another.
जलौकसं जलयद्वत् महान्तो वदन्ति अनीयसहं दुर्बलास भलिनो राजन् महान्तो भलिनो मितहम् एवं बलिष्ठैः यदुभिः महद्भिः इतरान् विभुः यदून् यदुभिः अन्योन्यं भूभारान् संजहारः.
O king, as in the ocean, the bigger and stronger aquatics swallow up the smaller and weaker ones, so also the supreme personality of Godhead, to lighten the burden of the earth, has engaged the stronger Yadu to kill the weaker, and the bigger Yadu to kill the smaller.
देशकालार्धयुक्तानि हृत्तापो उपशमानि च हरन्ति स्मरतश्चित्तं गोविन्दाभिहितानि मे.
Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space.
सूत उवाच एवं चिन्तयतो जिष्णोः कृष्णपादासरोरुहं सौहार्देन अतिगाढेन शान्त आसीत् विमला मतिः.
Sutta Goswami said, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjun's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination.
वासुदेवाङ्घ्रि अनुध्यान परिबृंहितरं हसां भक्त्या निर्मदिता अशेष कषाय दिशनोऽर्जुनः.
Arjun's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided.
गीतं भगवता ज्ञानं यत्तत् सङ्ग्राममूर्धनि कालकर्मतमोरुद्धं पुनरदागमत् प्रभुः.
Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjun forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case. And again, he became Lord of his senses.
विशोको ब्रह्म सम्पत्य संचिन्न द्वैत संशयः लीन प्रकृतिर्नैपुण्यात् अलिङ्गत्वात् असम्भवः.
Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form.
निशिम्य भगवान् मार्गं संस्थां यदुकुलस्य च स्वपताय मतिं चक्रे निभृतात्मा युधिष्ठिरः.
Upon hearing of Lord Krishna's returning to his abode, and upon understanding the end of the Yadu dynasty's earthly manifestation, Maharaj Yudhishthira decided to go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. You recited the Sanskrit verses so beautifully. And thank you, Kirtan Mataji. You also gave a really nice rendering of the translations. Thank you very much. My name is Krishna Govinda Das. Thank you so kindly for allowing me to speak today. And today's verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, verses 17 to 18. The title of the chapter is The Pandavas Retired Timely. We recite the introduction verse, the invocation verse. Amagyana Timandasya Yana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurmritam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutme Swayam Rapakata Maya Tadata Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shivashikavitamscha Sadvait Asri He Krishna Pura Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kapanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangye Madhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Paramami Hare Priye Panchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'd like to offer my prayers to our spiritual master, eternal spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaputale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devan Gauravani Pachayane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashyatya Desatane. Also, I'd like to offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Swami. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaputale Shrimati Bhakti Swami Tinamane. Also, seek the blessings of all the devotees who are listening on this class, so that I may say something favorable on the wonderful topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Please also kindly forgive me for any mistakes as well. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Just a little mistake. I said the invocation prayers. The invocation prayers are supposed to be said after the purport. So that's my first mistake. Sorry, I haven't done it for a couple of weeks. So Satya Vitaha Kabati Nata Mada Ishvaro Me Adpada Padma Mabhavaya Pajanti Bhavya Mam Shranta Vahamarayo Ratino Bhuvistam Na Praharana Yad Adubhava Nirashtachitaha. Word for word translation. Satya, regarding a chariot driver, Etaha, engaged, Kamatina, by bad consciousness, Abadaha, one who delivers, Ishvaraha, the Supreme Lord, Me, my, Yat, whose, Pada, Padman, lotus feet, Abhavaya, in the matter of salvation, Pajanti, to render service, Bhavya, the intelligent class of men, Mam, unto me, Shranta, thirsty, Aham, my horses, Arayaha, the enemies, Patinaha, great general, Bhuvistam, while standing on the ground, Na, did not, Raharan, attack, Yat, whose, Anubhava, mercy, Narashta, being absent, Chitaha, mind. Translation: it was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from the chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver. For he is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Lord, the personality of God, Shri Krishna, is the object of worship, both by personalists and by the devotees of the Lord. The personalists worship his glowing effulgence, emanating from his transcendental body of eternal form, blessed knowledge. The devotees worship him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are below even the impersonalists consider him to be one of the greatest historical personalities. The Lord, however, descends to attract all by his specific transcendental pastimes, and thus he plays the part of the most perfect master, friend, son, and lover. His transcendental relation with Arjuna was in friendship, and the Lord therefore played the part perfectly as he did with his parents, lovers, and wives. By playing in such perfect transcendental relation, the devotee forgets by the eternal potency of the Lord that his friend or the son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although sometimes the devotee is bewildered by the acts of the Lord, after the departure of the Lord, Arjuna was conscious of his great friend, but there was no mistake on the part of Arjuna, nor any ill estimation of the Lord. Intelligent men are attracted by the transcendental acting of the Lord with a pure devotee, pure unalloyed devotee like Arjuna. In the war field, scarcity of water is a well-known fact. Water is very rare there, and both the animals and men working strenuously on the war field constantly require water to quench their thirst. Especially wounded soldiers and generals are very thirsty at the time of death. And it sometimes so happens that simply for want of water, one is to die unavoidably. But such scarcity of water was solved in the Battle of Kurukshetra by means of pouring the ground. By God's grace, water can be easily obtained from any place if there is facility for pouring the ground. The modern system works on the same principle of pouring the ground. But modern engineers are still unable to dig immediately wherever necessary. It appears, however, from the history as far back as the days of Pandavas, that big generals like Arjuna could at once supply water even to the horses. Or to speak of men by drawing water from underneath the hard ground, simply by penetrating the stratum with a sharp arrow, a method which still unknown to the modern scientists. Translation again. It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me. When I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses, it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered services by the best man to obtain salvation. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So when I was reading this particular verse today, the first thought that came to my mind is actually been spoken by Srila Prabhupada several times. If you're a friend of Krishna and somebody's trying to harm you, then there's nobody in the world that can harm you if Krishna protects you. But if Krishna wants to kill you, then there's nobody in this world that can save you from Krishna. So Arjuna was in that dilemma, even though he was protected by the Lord all the time. And now he's come to a point where the Lord, although he's not there, he feels very weak, he feels insignificant, he's been attacked by other enemies, and he's lost his whole power that he had while Krishna was there at the same time. But Krishna will always protect him, no doubt, because the relationship Arjuna had with Krishna was that he was a very pure devotee, a pure friend of Krishna. So there is a particular verse that Srila Prabhupada sometimes mentions, is Rake Krishna Mare Ke, Mare Krishna Rake Ke. I just quickly read some of this because although we're talking more specifically about when Krishna leaves the planet and the Pandavas are distressed, that they're bereft of that relationship with the Supreme Lord, they feel that there is no purpose in living. They've won their kingdom, the battle of Kurukshetra, over 18 days, 640 million people had died. They're feeling very, they're lamenting so much that what was the reason for this? Now that Krishna's gone, there's no significance, there's no feeling of happiness at all, attaining all this wealth, attaining all this kingdom, attaining all this opulence, prosperity, because ultimately it is without Krishna's divine interaction that they were able to survive all the different difficulties that they faced and challenges and Kauravas. So here Srila Prabhupada mentions Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is pleased upon somebody, nobody can annihilate him. Similarly, if he is angry upon somebody, nobody can protect him. There is a Bengali prayer, Rake Krishna Marike, Mare Krishna Rakeke. Krishna wants to kill somebody, Krishna does not kill. Neither living entity is ever killed. Just like a father who chastises his son, it is not chastisement, it is a favor. Oh, sorry, am I sharing this? Oh, somebody should have mentioned this. I'm not sharing this. I do apologize. It's another mistake I made today. So the devotees can understand that even sometimes we meet a very reverse condition of life. It's also a favor. Tatte Nigambam Su Samsi Shamanaha Shama Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, verse 8. Anyone who can see that this unfavorable condition of life is also another favor of Krishna. Even there is some suffering, it is not given by Krishna. I'm suffering on account of my past misdeeds. Krishna is so kind that I would have suffered many hundreds, thousands of times more than the present suffering. But Krishna is adjusting the whole thing by a little suffering. This is the vision of a devotee. Nukam Sus Shamshekamano Bunjanaha Ivata Pakata Vipakam Amakata Vipakam. Devotee never accuses Krishna that Krishna, I'm serving you so nicely, you're giving me so much suffering. No, this is not a devotee's view. Devotee would take that this so-called suffering is also Krishna's favor. That Nukam Su Shamik Shamanaha. So those who are going forward with Krishna consciousness, they should not be, adapted to any condition of life. So lecture by Srila Prabhupada, Mayapur, February the 8th, 1976. So once again, although Arjuna and the Pandavas, their suffering was nothing like the suffering that we have, the karmic reactions due to our past misdeeds, because they were pure devotees. So their suffering was transcendental. But of course, the feeling of separation is that something that they're actually experiencing. And that is for the topmost devotees. And that is the feeling that we should also be feeling within our hearts. My dear Krishna, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although I'm worshiping you, although I'm praying to you, although I'm offering all the offerings to you, but still I feel your separation. I feel that bliss in serving you, but yet I feel that I need to be personally with you. I feel like I want to touch your lotus feet. I want to see your smile. So when you see Krishna, there's all the different relationships that the Lord has with his devotees. And I briefly mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Now, of the 5 popular relationships, the first one is Madhurya Rasa, which is the relationship of the highest level of conjugal love, like Srimati Radharani feels and the gopis feel. The second one is Sakya, or a development of our relationship as a friend to Krishna, in the case like Arjuna is. Vatsalya, that's the form of relationship to Krishna in parenthood, like Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and Devaki and Vasudeva. And all the different incarnations of Krishna, he comes specifically, and he may have, although the expansions of Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they become pairs for Lord Krishna as well. Shantaras, that's a relationship with the Supreme Lord when you're in a mutual relationship with the Lord. Good example is like Narada Muni, although he's always worshiping the Supreme Lord, but at the same time, he also glorifies the Lord to his enemies, and in one way he entices them to develop this mood, this rasa, this difference between the enemies of Krishna and Krishna himself. And why is that? Because Krishna wants to protect his devotees. And that is one of the most important verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada dharmasya dhani bhavate dharmasya dharmanam dharmijam sujami. Please excuse me, this one. Yada yada dharmasya dhani bhavate Bharata, Adyuta Nama Dharmasya Dadharmanam Shijamiham. Whenever and wherever there's a decline in religious practice, the descendant of the Lord, the predominant rise of their religion, at that time I discern myself, as from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 7. So the prime duty of the Supreme Lord coming to the material world is to protect his devotees and to annihilate the miscreants and re-establish the principles of religion. So then we were talking about the different relationships of the Supreme Lord that you have with his devotees, like in the form of Madhurya Ras, Shanta Ras, in the form of parental, or in Sakya Ras as friendship. Then Malati Mataji, she asked Prabhupada, is God really a little boy, a little blue boy? Is he really a naughty boy? Is God really like a coward boy? Is mischievous, stealing butter? How is it possible that we can believe that God is this description that you've given me? So she was just curious, because when we see the Supreme Lord, we see him with awe and reverence. We see him somebody so powerful, you know, in the highest celestial chair. Have a look at everybody, you know, everybody's in awe and reverence to the Supreme Lord. But yet here he is. He's described as a mischievous little boy, a young boy who's teasing the gopis, he's stealing butter, he's tending to the cows, you know, he's playing with his coward boys, friends. And how is it possible? Srila Prabhupada says, do you think I would lie to you? So, of course, whatever Srila Prabhupada is given, it's not something that's just been made, man-made. It's actually following the same scriptures that his authorities have given him. His spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, from generations before that, the Sampradaya, the Lord Krishna spoke this transcendental science of knowledge to Vivashvan, the sun god, from Vivashvan to Ishvakuru, Ishvakuru to Manu, the father of mankind, and it was passed on from generation to generation from the Sampradaya, from one spiritual master to another spiritual master. So it's not some made up stories, it's not some mythology, not some sort of fable stories. Krishna is a supreme Lord, and many atheists don't believe in the Lord, and that's because they don't really have a real connection with the Lord. And just like everything else, just like if scientists want to prove something, they have to perform an experiment. How do we ensure that this reaction to this chemical and that chemical creates this chemical? And the other way is by experimenting. Similarly, the other way you can develop a relationship or to see if God really exists is to actually feel and take the experiment of surrendering unto the Supreme Lord. And there's many ways of surrendering unto the Supreme Lord. We'll cover that in a short while. So the transcendental process of the Lord is, in this particular verse, is recognized as a perfect master, is recognized as a perfect chariot driver. Srila Prabhupada explains that it's a perfect friend, perfect son, in so many ways. But how did Lord Krishna end up being a chariot driver to Arjuna? So some of you may know this wonderful story. It was just the time before the battle of Kurukshetra. Lord Krishna spoke many times to the Kauravas, to Duryodhana, to say, you know, why don't you develop some peaceful relationship, you know, with the Pandavas, give half the land or some land, even 5 villages. That's all what Yudhishthira Maharaj wanted for the Pandavas. But Duryodhana, because of his ignorance, because of his desire to be the conqueror of the world, he said, no, I would not even give him any land which is equal to the size of a tip of a pin. So unfortunately, war was inevitable. And the idea was that both sides of the armies, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, were going far and wide across the atmosphere to try and encourage all the other kings, all the other warriors to side on their, or to partake their side of the war itself, to become friends or allies to their army itself. So then it came to a point where they said, oh, what about the Yadu dynasty? We must go and see the Yadu dynasty. So Duryodhana and Arjuna went to the palace where Krishna resided in Dwarka, and there Krishna was sleeping at that time. Although Arjuna was standing by the bedside, just by the lotus feet of Krishna, but Krishna had his eyes closed, but Duryodhana was sitting by the side of Krishna. By some arrangement, he knocked something over, which caused a bit of a noise and disturbed Krishna's sleep. And the first person that Krishna saw was Arjuna. And then both of them came to tell Krishna about the predicament. Of course, Arjuna, being a friend of Krishna, offered his respects to Krishna as his best friend. And the question that they asked Krishna, would you please be our ally in this war from the Kurukshetra, the battle of Kurukshetra? And Krishna said, well, you know, unfortunately, I'm not going to take any weapons. I won't, you know, partake in any of the warfare itself. I can give you a choice. You can either be your chariot driver, or you can have my Yadav dynasty as allies in your army. So then, first of all, Arjuna and Duryodhana said, okay, you know, Duryodhana, I believe he came first, so he said he should have first choice. But then Krishna said, yes, she may have come first, but it was Arjuna I saw first, because Arjuna was standing by the lotus feet of Krishna, his bed. So then Arjuna was about to speak, and Duryodhana said, "Oh, what's the point? Arjuna's going to ask for your army, Krishna. What value will I have now?" But Arjuna was so thoughtful. He had so much love for Krishna. He said, "No, Krishna, I don't want the army. I just want you. Please be on my side." And then Duryodhana was beaming with joy. "Oh, yes, you can have Krishna. I will have Krishna's army." It was like hundreds of thousands of soldiers and infantrymen that were on Krishna's army that were now part of the allies of Duryodhana. But Krishna became the shadow driver for Arjuna, and many people, find this very strange. Here's the Supreme Lord, but he's become a shadow driver, because at that time Arjuna doesn't recognize that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why is that? Because Krishna has many, many potencies. He has the external potency, he has the internal potency, and yes, the marginal potency. The marginal potency are considered the spirit souls and living entities, like all of us. Anything that's conscious we'll consider to be marginal potency. External energy is considered all the material world, is under the control of Durga Devi and Lord Shiva. This internal potency, it's actually in many, many internal potencies he has, but it's also divided into 3 internal potencies. One is Samvit, second one is Sandhini, and the third one is Aladini. Aladini is the pleasure potency of the Lord. And when Krishna actually expands himself from his pleasure potency, he becomes Srimati Radharani. So there, from this internal potency, he covers the actual real knowledge of who he is as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to his dear friend Arjuna, to his dear mother, Mother Yashoda, and Nanda Maharaj. They do not see Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They just see him as my dear darling son. They see Arjuna sees Krishna as my dear friend. So in that way, Krishna covers himself as a Supreme Lord. Otherwise, just like a spiritual master, although they're treated, worshipped as good as God, they don't want their own reverence. And if they did get any worship or attention, then we'll be happy to pass that bhakti onto their own spiritual master, which goes on to his spiritual master and so forth, and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna doesn't want any attention unnecessarily. He just wants the natural love for him as a Supreme Lord, as a friend, as a lover, as a mother, father, son, daughter, etc. So while Krishna is actually covering this internal potency over Arjuna doesn't recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it does so to all the different beings who actually see Krishna, and sometimes out of ignorance, some of them don't even recognize Krishna. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we see, or you hear Krishna saying, chapter 9:11, "Those who ride me when I descend in the human form of life, they do not see me as the Supreme Lord or that be. They see Krishna just as an ordinary human being." Even nowadays, many people feel that Krishna was just a hero. They don't believe that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, because they see Krishna as the Supreme Lord, because they see Vishnu with opulence, worshipped by the demigods, Shiva, Brahma, Indra, but they don't necessarily see a picture of Krishna being worshipped by all the demigods. But of course, all of you bhaktas, devotees of Krishna, or Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, you know very well all the beautiful concepts from the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Krishna lifted up the Govardhan hill, then that actually destroyed the pride of Indra, and Indra had to surrender himself to Krishna and ask for forgiveness. When Lord Brahma was stealing all the cowed boys and the calves away from Krishna, although it's a moment of his time, lapsed to one particular year, then he realized his mistake. We see Krishna as the Supreme Lord, and he offered his prayers to the Supreme Lord. The beautiful prayers we now know as Brahma Samhita. So earlier on, I was mentioning about the different processes of serving the Supreme Lord. And we've all heard the beautiful verse that Prahlad Maharaj recites in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. The most important is hearing about the glories of the Supreme Lord, hearing and chanting of the Supreme Lord, the glories of the Supreme Lord. So when Arjuna is actually recognizing that Krishna is no longer there with him, he's feeling very guilty. I dare to engage him as my chariot driver. As a chariot driver, it's been said that, when the artist, wants to take his chariot a particular direction, left, right, forward, backwards, it sometimes has no way of informing his chariot driver because of the noise around him. He has to almost like kick the chariot driver this way, that way, backwards, forwards. So he feels guilty. This is how I treated him. This is how I said to him, oh friend, oh Yadav. So in a particular verse from Bhagavad Gita 11:42, due to time, I'll just read the translation. This is chapter 11. This is the universal form, where Krishna shows the universal form to Arjuna. And after he shows the universal form, then Arjuna recognizes him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He says, thinking of you as my friend, I've rashly addressed you, O Krishna, O Yadava, my friend, not knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I've dishonored you many times, jesting as we relaxed, lay on the same bed, or sat or ate together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. O infallible one, please excuse me for all those offenses. So now he's come to his senses, he realizes that Krishna, the Supreme Lord, who took care of him, who protected all the Pandavas from the calamities against the Kauravas, the humiliation during the exile, during the burning of the wax palace. There's so many hideous sinful reactions that the Kauravas committed to the Pandavas, but Krishna was always there protecting them every step of the way. So now Arjuna is feeling very remorse. He's saying, how did I treat you so in such a way? I've dishonored you many times. No, but Krishna, as the Supreme Lord, he did not take any offenses because he sees Krishna just as a pure friend, pure devotee of the Lord himself. Now, further on, it also mentions about esteem as well. If I go back to this verse, and it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver. So what does the word esteem mean? Esteem is a way of saying having self-respect, recognizing for what you've done. So sometimes when you have esteem, you want people to admire you. You want people to recognize who you are for your position, your fame, or need adoration, some glorification. But when you add the word self-esteem, you feel confident in one yourself, of your own ability. You want self-respect. You want people to respect you for who you are. Self-esteem can be very good in one way, and it's used in Krishna's service. The self-esteem from a mature platform for your own personal recognition, adoration, fame, glory. It's a way of having pride, and before a fall, you have pride itself. So when you have self-esteem, you develop that confidence in serving Krishna. How could I serve Krishna? So when you actually see some of the early disciples of Srila Prabhupada merely told them, why don't you go and preach in this country? Why don't you go and preach in that country? Why don't you preach in that country? If your spiritual master was to tell you, why don't you go and preach in this country? We would all have excuses. I had an excuse too. My own spiritual master told me to come to Ujjain to help and develop a project for him. And he was developing a project in 3D animation, making 3D animations with the stories of Krishna. And I was just finished off my master's in animation, as well as maintaining a family and children. And because of my attachment to my family, I sort of indirectly told, all right, let me see what my situation is. But now in that time, I was able to serve Guru Maharaj in different ways anyway, and of course Prabhupada and the temple, and raise a family in a Krishna conscious way too. But when you're developing self-esteem, you become confident when you're serving Krishna. Just like yesterday, the Shashika Prabhu, he gave such a beautiful seminar on Bhakti Distribution at Bhaktivedanta Manor. Now, we all love reading Krishna Katha, we all love Prasada, we like going to the temple, see the beautiful deities of the Lord, hearing the wonderful lectures of the devotees, partaking in Krishna Kirtan. We all love that. But when you go out on the street and give out a book, there's a feeling of, well, I'm not sure if I'm qualified. I don't really have the confidence. And here the Shashak Prabhu are giving us little, baby steps of how you could go out on the streets and develop a feeling of showing what you're doing for Krishna, for Prabhupada, not for yourself. You have to take that ego away from you. You've got to take that feeling of pride, of self-esteem for yourself, but take that self-esteem to serving Krishna, to serving Prabhupada. And he carried on giving examples in many ways. And at the same time, he elected everybody to pair up together and actually go through a dialogue that he sort of proposed, where you could actually introduce yourself in Krishna consciousness, give a book to somebody who may not be favorable, perhaps an atheist, perhaps a Christian, or somebody from a different faith, or perhaps even preaching to a Hindu. How to develop those skills, that knowledge of serving Krishna in a certain way. And in doing so, you develop your own sadhana of improving your bhakti to Krishna. When you actually preach to others, there's no devotee more dear to me than one who glorifies to me, to other devotees. So this is our mood. We shouldn't really just keep Krishna consciousness to ourselves, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. We have to share this burden. This burden is a spiritual burden. We all have a burden at home, no doubt. Pay for the mortgage, pay for the bills, maintaining the car, maintaining the family. One after another, every day there's some letter that comes to the post, or of course nowadays by email or a message through your mobile phone. Your bank account is overdrawn. So many burdens that you've got to juggle around in life. But sometimes, if you put Krishna in the center of your life, many of these difficulties become secondary nature, just like what I mentioned earlier on, that particular beautiful verse. Rake Krishna, Mareke, Hare Krishna, Rake. If you have complete faith in Krishna, even though you may go through difficulties in your life, even though you may feel I'm suffering so much, but no, the devotees say, I would actually suffer 1,000 times more, but yet Krishna's been so merciful to me. That is the feeling we have. But although it's easier said than done, but the way to do it is such an important way by we having Sangha with other devotees, by constantly reading, chanting, attending the morning program, listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. So a couple of days ago, His Holiness Indra Yumna Maharaj gave a wonderful class to the Padmasena and Padmasena alumni. I sort of sneaked in there pretending I was a young Padmasena alumni. And the topic of that particular theme was so this verse here. Does anybody want to read this verse? If you can see on the screen. Nikhil?
Yeah, I can read it, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravan Mathura Vasa Shri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevan.
And English.
One should associate with devotees, chant the holy name of the Lord, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, reside at Mathura, and worship the deity with faith and veneration. CC Madhya Lila 22, 1-8.
Oh, yes, right. It's just here. I was just surprising because I'm surprised Papa didn't put a purport here, but of course, in one way, it's quite self-explanatory. So the topic that Indra Maharaj was speaking about was one should associate with the devotees. So many of you have wonderful devotees in our lives. We need somebody to motivate us, to give support, give inspiration, to develop our Krishna consciousness, perhaps a mentor, a spiritual master, or even somebody who may be senior to you, or somebody equal to you, or somebody junior to you, as Narada Muni mentions to Dhruva Maharaj, when he's praying, meditating on the Supreme Lord in the forest. So when you actually meet somebody who's more senior to you, you can give them respect. But importantly, it's the association of the devotees, Sadhu Sangha. So I gave a really wonderful topic on Sadhu Sangha, that even that during the time when there was difficulties, when he was preaching in different parts of the world, that he was attacked by police, attacked by other mobs and yobs, and stones thrown at the Sankirtan party, but yet they still persevered. Why is that? Because they stayed together. Just like I can't remember exactly where the quote came from, but I do recall when I watched the Mahabharata TV series, when Duryodhana was speaking to Shakuni, he was saying, you know, yes, the Kauravas are very strong, we're 100-fold. And Shakuni said, yes, 100-fold is great. Of course, this is slightly at a tangent, but Shakuni, my mind, was saying, yes, but the Pandavas are 5, and 1, 5 together make a fist. But the main thing was the fact that they stayed together, you know, as a unity. And within devotee association, people may have different opinions, different views, you know, there may be different misinterpretation on the scriptures itself. And that's why it's so important that we take the or surrender to the authorities, somebody far senior to you, who has actually recognized authority from the Sampradaya. We start concocting things ourselves, and unfortunately we go off on a tangent. And if you think about yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, however long you've been in the movement, you may think, well, I remember this devotee. Where is he now? I remember this devotee. I haven't seen it for a long time. Of course, some generally move on to different parts of the world. Perhaps a different, you know, business has brought them to, or job has allowed them to move on, or different ashram that they moved on. But certainly, there are devotees who've sort of come into Krishna consciousness and dissipated. So sometimes if we have time, we just have to connect ourselves. We may not be able to spend so much time connected to everyone, but even just a friendly message, hey, Prabhu, hey, Mataji, there's a program at the temple, so special masters is going to be talking, so Vaishnava is going to be talking, this festival. It's a little message. You know, one time I remember I used to send messages, this is before WhatsApp or, you know, before social media, when we used to do the Padmasena programs in the mid-90s. We used to have a program every fortnightly in Harrow, used to be called Jamming. And I tried to invite a few friends of mine constantly, but many times they'd never come. Eventually they came, and they became very, very much enthusiastic and participated in the fortnightly jamming program, whatever, special devotee come and speak, to pravachan, of kirtan and prasadam, just association with like-minded devotees. Eventually they took it so seriously, they took on the management of that jamming program as well, for quite a while as well. So that shows you, you know, not so much my potency, but potency of the devotees like yourself. You just reach out to anybody, who knows, you may be touching somebody who may drift away Krishna consciousness, who may not be so favorable to other people because of his personality, his nature. We all change, just like Narada Muni. We read from the Srimad Bhagavatam how he's transformed even the most heartless a person, a meat eater, a mlecha, into pure devotees of Krishna consciousness. So I'm just hoping I've covered everything. If there's any questions or comments, please do let me know. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention quickly, although it's part of the purport, here when Krishna tells Arjuna, or rather Arjuna is saying that, you know, it was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. So this is still important because at the time of the warfare of the Battle of Kurukshetra, many people were dying, and when you were injured, you were thirsty, you needed to clean yourself, needed some sort of water, and you couldn't just find water anyway. It wasn't like taps or anything like that. And here Prabhupada in the Prabhupada he mentions about how in the modern world, people drill big bores to extract water out from the ground itself. But during the time of battlefield of Kurukshetra, you know, the warriors, they had special bows, special mantras that could penetrate the hard ground, and from the hard ground, water would immediately come to the surface, and that will obviously quench the thirst of all these, the armies, the animals, the horses. And at that time, when he was about to feed the horses the water, the enemies were about to attack Arjuna, but Arjuna was protected by Krishna himself. So just like he actually was protected by Krishna, similarly, when Bhishma Dev was dying on the battlefield of arrows, on the arrow bed of arrows, he was feeling very thirsty, and everybody brought to him like a jug of water or something. He said, no, 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 I don't want that. And then what did Arjuna do? He shot 2 or 3 arrows into the ground. From the ground came Ganga, and into the mouth of Bhishma Dev. Because Bhishma Dev was born from Ganga Devi. So I'll end there because Nikhil is going to be singing a beautiful song, Hari Hari Bifale, one of Srila Prabhupada's favorite songs. And thank you for listening. And please forgive me for any mistakes or offenses as well. And I should have said the invocation prayers how to read in the book as well. Thank you, Nikhil Prabhu. Vanchikapadravishya Kripasinibhevita Vititana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. All glories to the Vaishnavas. Shabbat Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shabbat Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my humble obeisance to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we have Chaitna Mataji who will be doing the recitation, and then Nikhil Prabhuji would be thinking. Hare Krishna.
May I start now?
Yes, please, Mataji.
The translation for the bhajan. O Lord Hari, I have spent my life uselessly, having obtained a human birth and having not worshipped Radha and Krishna, I have knowingly drunk poison. The treasure of the divine love in Goloka Vrindavan has descended as the congregational chanting of Lord Hari's holy names. Why did my attraction for that chanting never come about? Day and night, my heart burns from the fire of the poison of worldliness, and I have not taken the means to relieve it. Lord Krishna, who is the son of King of Braja, became the son of Sachi, Lord Chaitanya, and Balaram became Nitai. The holy name delivered all those souls who are lowly and wretched. The two sinners, Jagai and Madai, are evidence of this. O Lord Krishna, son of Nanda, accompanied by the daughter of Vrishabhanu, please be merciful to me now. Narottama Das says, O Lord, please do not push me away from your reddish lotus feet. For who is my beloved except for you? Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Chaitna Mataji, for reciting the beautiful translation. Thank you also, Namrata Mataji, for giving me the opportunity to sing a bhajan today. And of course, thank you to Krishna Govinda Prabhu for a wonderful class. As Prabhu said, just wanted to mention, he's already mentioned, this is one of Srila Prabhupada's favorite bhajans. So, I feel fortunate to be able to sing this bhajan. So, Hare Krishna. Hari Hari Bifale Janama Goaino Hari Hari Bifale Janama Goaino Manusya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Nabhajiya Janiya Shuniya Bhisha Khainu Janiya Shuniya Bhisha Khainu Golokera Premadhana Hari Nama Sankirtana Golokera Premadhana Hari Nama Sankirtana Ratina Janmi Lokene Tai Ratina Janmi Lokene Tai Samsara Vishanale Divanishi hiya jale samsara vishanale. Divanishi hiya jale jurai na koi nu pai. Jurai na koi nu pai. Rajendra Nandana Jai Shachi Sutta Hoilo Se Rajendra Nandana Jai Shachi Sutta Hoilo Se Balarama Hoilo Nitai Balarama hoilo nita dinahina jata chilo hari name udharilo dinahina jata chilo hari name udharilo Tara Shakshi Jagai Madha Tara Shakshi Jagai Madha Aha Prabhu Nanda Sutta Vrishabhanu Sutta Juta Corona karo e baro Corona karo e baro Narottama dasa koi Nateli ho ranga pai Narottama dasa koi Nateli ho ranga pai Toma bine ke ache amara Toma bine ke ache amara Aha Prabhu Nanda Sutta Vrishabhanu Sutta Juta Aha Prabhu Nanda Sutta Vrishabhanu Sutta Juta Coruna karo e baro Coruna karo e baro Narottama das koi Nateli ho ranga pai Narottama das koi Nateli ho ranga pai Toma bine ke ache amara Toma bine ke ache amara Hari Hari Bifale Janama Aino Hari Hari Bifale Janama Aino Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nice singing, heartfelt singing. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Nicole. Very beautiful. Hare Krishna, everyone. Jai.